Guys, welcome. This is video 3 of 4 in the marketing and branding workshop. And so in this video, we're going to be covering the understanding of mass focus. And so let's start with understanding first, whom does history remember? All right, let's go down the list. If you talk about history and people who stand out, you'll find amongst them scholars, rulers, artists, generals and soldiers, scientists, activists, businesses and traders, travelers, chroniclers, historians, and documentarians, right? And in fact, this is a fun exercise, right? Where I like, whenever I've done this live, I ask people like, hey, name me a scholar, and people shout out different names. Name me a ruler, and you got good old artistic rendering of Mansa Musa here. Artists, in this case, we got Picasso. Generals and soldiers, Genghis Khan, or as they would normally call it, Genghis Khan. We got scientists, we got Avicenna, you've got activists like Martin Luther King or even Gandhi. You've got businesses and traders. East India Tea Company, infamous in terms of the what I would say plundering that they did in South Asia. You have travelers like Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta, chroniclers and historians from Ibn Hayyan al-Qurtubi all the way to like Ken Burns to today. Now, the thing is this, in all of these cases, do you notice a pattern? What is the pattern that you notice? Each one of these guys, despite the fact that they might have been multidisciplinarian, they're known for one thing. That's their mark in history, so to speak. Now, the real question is, what is the problem that your business solves? And this is really, really important. Branding is focusing on the one thing and putting all of your resources, energy, and time behind it. Now, to kind of give you an example of how this works, consider 1492. What happened? Well, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's what happened. But why? Why did he traverse on a voyage across the ocean? Well, in 1453, from one perspective, you can say that he opened or conquered Constantinople. On a European perspective, they say that's the year that Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Empire. Now, why was this significant? Why was this important? Well, Constantinople was a focal point for trade into Europe. And since the Ottoman Empire was in conflict with European powers, one of the best ways to put pressure on them was trade, resources, and whatnot. And so, even the Silk Road historically has been a route all the way to Spain, all from China to Spain. Your alternative is literally to go around the entire continent of Africa. And to give you an idea of what kind of distance this is, just look at the Mediterranean Sea and superimpose the United States, 48 contiguous states on top, right? And go back to this. That's how big of a region that is. Imagine having to sail across the entire continent of Africa just to get your spices and raw materials and textiles so that you can continue to conduct business. They weren't having it. And so the colonial powers decided, hey, you know what, we're going to do this. Now, let's talk about Columbus for a second here, right? This guy, he's like, hey, you know what, I've got, he goes to Queen Ferdinand Isabella, and they're like, hey, you know what, I got a route to India. They fund his trip. Guess who's sailing those ships? It's conquered Muslims. And just to kind of give you an idea of Spain, how big it is, it's this is Texas, right? Superimpose Spain. You had the fall of Granada, right? The Queen Isabel and Inquisition, all that took the power away from the Muslims that were ruling at the time for almost a millennia, and then from there they decided to sail west. You can almost say that Latinos and Muslims, or rather Hispanics and Muslims, helped discover America. Now, the reason I'm mentioning all this is that in each case, right, I mentioned Columbus because he's a historical figure, albeit bad guy from one perspective for sure. But there's a story here, and he's known for something. And all of the people that I mentioned before, they might have been good guys, they might have been bad guys, but they're known for something. The question is, what is your story, or rather, what is the story of your business or your brand? And going into this, just want to talk about symbolism a little bit, right? We talk about branding, logos, and things like that. A lot of times people think branding is about logos. Now, logos are important, right? Symbolism is important. Take a look at the Ottoman symbol, right? Star and the crescent. People look at it as a as a Muslim symbol. But here's the reality. The reason the Ottomans have this symbol is because when they conquered Constantinople, the city symbol was this. And in reality, the symbol itself was commemorating the moon goddess. But although that was the original pagan root of the star and crescent, over time it just became the symbol of the city, which when it was conquered by the Ottomans, they adopted it as their empire symbol, and anybody that had any affinity or alliance or were under the control or influence or protection of the Ottoman Empire, they ended up adopting some form of the star and crescent as part of their national symbol. And so, although some might assume that the star and crescent is a Muslim symbol, I disagree, and I will say it is an Ottoman symbol that happened to be predominantly Muslim. But that is the power of symbolism. It doesn't matter what the semantics or the specifics are. At the end of the day, people see a shape and then they associate something with it because of the history, that the continuous behavior that it has had. Now, this brings us to a question, and you can pause here, but I would say just think about this for now, is what is going to be your one thing? Paint a picture, right? Consider where you're going. JFK at Rice University here in Texas, when he gave that special famous speech, he goes, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s so we can expand human capability of exploring the stars. Right? Now, granted, that was the speech that they gave to sell it to the public. In reality, the reason that they're doing it is because we got to beat the Russians, because they're not the Russians, the Soviets. And the Soviets were winning every moment, every single thing from the first rocket. They're like, you know what, let's just go straight to the moon. And that's how they won. Consider this. Branding and identity is focusing on the one thing and putting all your energy and resources behind it. I mentioned this earlier. Also consider this, and one of the ways that you can think about it is 25 years from now, you are dead. You dead. What does the obituary read? Now, this goes down to understanding, like, all right, you want to build a brand, you want to be known for one thing, but there's some foundational work that needs to be done. And this is all part of the workshop, right? Consider this, whether it's for you individually or your business. Who are you in terms of your talent, your natural inclinations, your genetics, your specific intelligence, right? Are you a math person? Are you a science person? On a more basic level, but generally make a note of these foundational DNA kind of things. Who are you in terms of your knowledge and skills? These are the things that are in your control, right? The schooling you invest in, the education that you get, the training that you build, all on top of your talents. And then you apply that talent, knowledge, and skill towards experience, right? Towards solving specific problems and challenges, right? Keep in mind, reputation will always precede revenue. Credibility is what will build your brand, the layering of multiple experiences over time that impact the lives of others. Your identity, and that's what this comes down to. Your talents, your knowledge, your skills, your problem-solving ability, and the experience that you gain with each problem that you solve, right? That ultimately is, and that benefit and that's the benefit and the value that you add to the world. All of this comes down to who you are inside. That's what your identity is. But the brand, that comes down to behavior, what you do with your strength. So super problems, they require super solutions. So coming back to the workshop, what problem does your business solve? I look forward to seeing you in the final portion.